Good morning. This is Amazing Dave. I'm going to turn this around a second so I can talk to you. Here we go. All right. Now, this we're going to look at repairing an ice maker this morning. And this is a job that is not for a novice. This is for pros, semi-pros, or highly capable technicians that know how to take things apart, solder a little part in, and replace the part and put it all back together correctly. All right, and there's a fair amount of disassembly in this. If you can do this, it will save up probably somewhere around about $600–700 or more if somebody comes out to do the repair on the refrigerator. And we may talk about that aspect a little bit more. But, well, actually, I'll talk about it right now. The general repair on this, and this is for a Samsung cafe door style. My model of my refrigerator anyway is an RF4287HARS. So 4287HARS, and then it's /XX01. Again, that's my specific model, but the ice maker may be applicable, or this particular repair may be similar in some other models as well. So hopefully that this will help you out, but the issue here is, I hate to get into details right off and bore you, but the details are as this. As you look around different blogs and people asking for information on this ice maker, trying to resolve the issues, in general, the ice maker is advised to be replaced. However, if you buy a new ice maker, there is concern because you will probably get the updated version of the ice maker. And the updated version, it's been said in blogs, does not work with the current control board that's in the refrigerator. And it's actually the motherboard on my specific model. It doesn't have a separate controller board. So you have to replace the entire working motherboard brain of the refrigerator. Okay. And also repairmen will, because they want to make sure everything works properly, will also replace the control valve that's in the back of the refrigerator, because that can also fail. So to make sure that all the bases are covered, they will replace all of them. The new ice maker has been put in, the newer updated model, with the old board, and it has not worked. So people have had to go ahead and buy the board and put that in also. The ice maker is going to be like about $150. Control board is like $150. The water valve replacement is about $100 or so, and so you're looking at between $400 and $500 in parts, and you're also looking at repair, somebody that is labor for somebody to come out and do it. So it is expensive to get it that repaired on the Samsungs. It is a known issue that they do have problems, sometimes within as early as 3 years or so. So my refrigerator, I think, is about 8 years old. So it is up there ways. All right. So the symptom that I have on mine is that the ice maker just simply stopped working. I just wasn't getting ice anymore. It did have a tendency to, I think, slow down and not produce as much ice, and then it just stopped completely. And it took quite a long time to troubleshoot it, looking at different videos and so forth. In my particular case, this is very important. In my particular case, it was an issue of the ice was actually, or I should say, the water was actually getting into the tray, that is, into the freezing tray of the ice maker, and it was staying there. It would freeze in there, but the mechanism was incapable of ejecting the ice and putting it into the tray. So it was just stuck frozen in the tray, and it took a while to figure that out. So I'm going to try to go through what my problem was, and I believe this is the same problem as is existing in many others. When you put the ice maker in test mode, which we will probably cover later, but there's other videos on YouTube that show how to put it in test mode. It will start going through its steel. It'll fill the thing full of water. It will freeze the thing. You won't see this happening, but shortly after you put it into test mode, let's say maybe an hour later or so, you'll hear this kind of, some people I think talk about it as grinding, but this isn't really a grinding, I wouldn't say on mine. It makes almost like kind of a whirring sound, and it's not all that loud unless the room is really quiet. So it's kind of a and what it is the little motor is trying to make the little ejection lever work, but it can't because the ice is stuck. And the reason the ice is stuck is because you ready? Because there's a little heater in it. The heater has to heat the ice up tray slightly to loosen the ice up so it doesn't stick to the tray. The heater doesn't work, the ice is going to just be stuck there forever. So let's look at the parts and let's look at the repair. All right, I'm going to turn this around now that I'm done boring you. All right, let's go. Okay, we are talking about this particular ice maker. This would look like that. It has the little release lever on the side there. Okay, that's the actual container tray, not the freezing tray, but the actual tray and the auger and so forth that would be in your refrigerator. Some of them are skinnier than this, of course, and different models. So you have to take this out, obviously, from the refrigerator to get to the ice maker itself. Since I'm in my shop and not near the refrigerator, I think that this is pretty self-explanatory about just pulling that out. You've probably had it out before. Okay, now to get the ice maker out is a little bit itself, which is this unit here, as a little bit more complicated, you might say. Let me grab this and we're going to go over to the bench. Okay. So I don't want to go into a lot of details about how to get this out because there are other videos that actually show this in the fridge and how to get it out. But there's a tab on the front of this ice tray. You have to pull this down really hard to get it released when it's in the refrigerator. And then if you put your hand toward the back of this unit, just reach right into the compartment this is in the back, put your hand around the back of it, and while you are pulling down on this tray or prying it with a screwdriver, then you pull out hard on the back side of this forward, and it will come loose and then drop down. Okay, this has a wiring harness to it with a plug, and it's behind this panel. It's a panel that looks like this, and it's on the side of the refrigerator, inside that freezer ice maker compartment. On the side, it has a little screw hole that's in there. It goes in there, and you pop this out, pop the front of this out. You kind of bend the front of it, and then you slide it forward, and then it'll come out, and that allows you access to where this harness plugs in to the inside of the ice maker compartment. Okay, so now that we got the thing out, and again, there's videos that show how to get this thing out. So this is about the repair of it, not about the removal of it. Once you get this thing out, there are a number of screws in it. There's 2 screws. There's a screw here, there's a screw there. I don't think we have any screws on the other side. Yes, there's one on the other side, right on that place. I have all of the screws out so that we can look at this thing. So once you get these screws out and you take the top part off, and there is, yeah, you'd think that it would just come off because you took all 3 screws out, right? Well, no. There's actually a little tab back here in the back, right there. So you have to bend that tab, this thing, in so that you can release this top part. It's hard to do with 2 hands. I mean, with 1 hand, we should say. Okay, we got it off. So this comes off. Set that aside. And now I'm going to turn this around so you can see it. Okay, now it looks like that without the top of it on. This also has screws on it. There's a screw that's here, and there's a screw that's there. Once you take that off, you'd think that would come off, but it does not. So the next thing we have to do is to get this end piece off. I'll turn it around again. This end piece here has to come off. Now, there's a screw in back, right there in the back, which the screws out again. I put a piece of tape on this so that I could get it open, and now the tape is stuck. So I can't get the dumb thing off. Anyway, all right, so once you get that screw out, then you can take this end piece off. I think I'm trying to be too neat here. Once you get this end piece off, you have to kind of tip it down. You're gonna have to tip it down to get that little tab, because there's a tab on the bottom of that. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Okay, now inside there's this. There is a motor. There is a little circuit board. There is a connection here, and some other components in there. Okay, what you need to do basically is to take all the screws out. There's two screws that hold the motor in. Of course, again, I have the screws out. There's two screws that holds the circuit board in, and there's also two screws that hold the whole assembly, this whole assembly over here, the freezing tray, to this end piece. You can't take any of these other things apart, those to get loose, to get them out of your way or anything, until you take this end piece loose. So you have to take basically all the screws out. You do want to probably take the motor out because it's just in the way. But anyway, once you get all those screws out, let me disconnect this a minute. We can take this wire loose, this harness, and it's kind of floppy and in the way. So we're going to take that. We're going to take that out. And there's no screws here, but it's kind of pressed into some of these grooves. So you have to take a little bit of muscle to get these things out. All right. Then once you get it out, you can take this piece here and slide it forward, and you disconnect the yellow part. If you've got the board loose, the board's also connected to this. You can take this out. If you've got the motor and all its screws out, then the little green wires are loose, and they're little tabs there. I don't know if you can see those or not, but those have little grounding tabs on them. Those two little tabs go, those two little crimp connections go also on where the screws are that mount the motor. Those are grounding wires, very important. When you take this apart, take pictures of it, take notes on it, because you want to make sure that you can get it back exactly the way that you took it apart. So I'm taking this wiring harness now, and I'm gonna set this big long thing out of the way so it's not in our way. There's a piece on the bottom of this that also has a screw hole in it. Take that screw out, and this piece here will come loose and come off, so it's not in your way too. So now you have the bare unit. This is the freezing tray right here. This is the way it looks. This part here, this silver part, this big hoop, is the heating element. That heating element has to heat up this tray here in order to melt the ice just enough so that it will loosen from the tray. If it doesn't heat up, the tray is stuck in the ice is going to be stuck in this tray forever. And you can take this out. You can kind of shine a flashlight down in there and see if there's any ice in it. If your refrigerator's doing that sound, then take this out and look. If it's got ice in there and it just won't come out, then it's not coming out. This little flipper is supposed to go around and kick the ice out. That's what that little motor does, the one that's in the end, the one that we took out. It turns this and it kicks the ice out, but it can't kick it out if it's hard frozen to that tray. The tray has to be heated up. So once we get all this other junk out of the way, you see the end. There's these two little nubs down here. This is the end. This is where the wires connect to the heating element down here. And those you don't want to take those loose. You don't want to clip wires or anything. Those do not need to be disconnected in order to do what you need to do with this, okay? So when we get it to this point, we want to, we're going to take some other things loose that you may not have to take loose, but it sure makes it easier to see things and easier to do the job. We would like to get rid of the little wiper and the little wiper, whatever you call it, and and this other piece, white plastic piece that's on the other side, okay? So what we need to do is to pull this end unit loose from the freezing tray itself. And once you got the screws out, this will separate from it. But you have to pull pretty good. It's got little seals around between the here and here, between where the wires go in. And it's a fairly snug fit. I think it's got some rubber seals or something. So you have to pull this end unit out away from the other parts and kind of somewhat pry them apart. You don't need to use a screwdriver, but just grab onto both of those and pull. Okay, so hang on just a second. Okay, now once I get this separated, you can see there's space between them now. Then I can take this out. This is going to come out this way, and it's got a little tab on the back side, or a little, actually, pin tab on the back side of it. You can pull this out and it will come off. But be careful how you take it off. Note how it comes off. It's got that little hole in the back. That's got to go over this little tab that sticks out here. And that's got to go in first, and then the little slot on the other side, this little piece that sticks out on the other side, has to go into the slot that's on the other side before you can push this thing back together when you start to assemble it. Now this rod here also can come out if you want to. You don't have to take it out, but if you want to take this little wiper out to get it out of your way, you can do that. I'm going to take this out just so that it's not flopping around, and so we can actually see things better, or maybe more accurately, so I can show you how this thing, what the repair is on this, and it's not coming apart. Okay, so it fits in a little hole there on one side, fits in this little wiper shaft, fits in the hole on the other side. It is, if I can show this, I'm not sure. It is not totally round. It is a D shape on that side. So the big side of the D shape goes in, and it does have to be in a particular position in there in order to go all the way in and mesh with gears and things that are in there. So let's put these aside also, so we have the basic unit. All right, now here's where we get down to the nitty-gritty. This is the part you want to pay most attention to. These two wires here, the one is connected to the side of the heating element, and the other one goes into the plug. The other side goes into the plug. Those two wires right there that kind of disappear into nowhere actually go to a component on the other side. Oh, I forgot this one thing. This little plug here, before we go into that, this little plug here is another set of wires that goes back into up here. It's higher up. Okay, that goes to a sensor that's on the other side. This little sensor right here. You don't mess with that. Okay, it's a temperature sensor. You want to be careful of those wires. You want to make sure when you reassemble it, that you get it in the right place. You don't pinch them. Make sure it's all the way down. And just don't mess with that. This little plug plugs into the circuit board. So that little circuit board that we took out, that was inside of the end unit, it has a little plug on the top of it. You have to plug that in before you install that back in. When you take it out, you unplug it, so that you've got access to everything else. Okay, now back to these other wires we were talking about before. These wires that kind of go into oblivion. If you look on the other side, I don't know if you can see it very well or not in there. Probably not, but they go to a component. There you can kind of see it. There's a component on the back side, and it's smashed between these two pieces. It's supposed to sit on against this freezing tray on the inside so that it can sense the temperature of this, okay? And it's a safety unit. It's not the temperature sensor. That's the other unit I showed you. But it actually senses the temperature to see if it's too hot, it will actually, it'll actually blow because it's a fuse. So you can kind of see it a little bit in there. Once that actually goes through a hole when it gets installed in the end of this thing. So if you pull on these two wires, it will actually come through the hole and come out, and it looks like that. It's a square, kind of looks like this looks like a square black piece of plastic, but in reality, this is a thermal fuse, okay? And it's, you can't see the numbers on it very well, I don't think. It won't focus on it very well. But it's just like a TAM, and it's a 250 volt, 3 amp, and the one that I have anyway is a 3 amp. So it'll say 250V, 3A, and then it says 102 C. So it's 102 degrees centigrade or Celsius, and that's its rating. It's 200. It's, if you go buy one, you need one that, if you're going to replace it, that is with the same thing. At 250 volts, 3 amps, 102 degrees. And you want to replace this, if you want to be the safest, to replace it with exactly the same thing. There are other ones that'll be 115 degrees, and there'll be 5 amp versions and so forth. So you really want to make sure you replace it with what the manufacturer said, unless you're an engineer and decide that you can, you want to change it and make it better or something. Just replace it with the same thing. You can get these actually on Amazon, believe it or not, and you can get them on eBay. You'll probably spend anywhere from maybe $10, $12 or something for one. You can get 5 of them, I think, for like $18. You know, so they're not expensive. If you can get more than one and they're fairly cheap, I would get more than one, because the wires are fairly fragile, and in putting it in, you might break one of the wires the first time. So maybe get 2 or 3 of them, because they're pretty cheap. If you can afford to wait the time for maybe a week or 2 for them to come, then, you know, go ahead and do that. There are round versions of these, so I caution you. You want the square thermal fuse. There are round bullet-shaped ones. Those won't work. You don't want those. Okay. So once you get one of these and you put it back in, then it will allow the heater to work. If this is dead, it's just like any other fuse. The power for this heating unit comes through this fuse, and it comes from the plug, which is where it gets its power from. So it can't power this little heater for the ice tray if this is blown. Mine was blown. You can put an ohm meter on this and test it, and it won't show anything. It'll show that it's open. So you can test it first before you replace it, of course, and you should. You can just put if you want to test the whole circuit, you can put an ohm meter on between these 2 pins on the plug. So I can get the wires out of the way here. Just like you stick a probe down in through there, whatever. And if you're not getting anything across between that's kind of a pinkish wire, and the gray wire, if they're not getting anything through, then either the heater element is bad, or the thermal fuse is bad. The heating element's pretty robust, so if it shows open, it's most likely the thermal fuse. You can check the thermal fuse itself by putting a probe across between these two. Once you get the insulation out of the way, you have to pull this insulation back. So anyway, that's basically the fix. When you put this back in, you have to make sure that you put it in, you slide it back in the hole where it came out, and then it has to go up. It has to bend up in an upward fashion. There's a little compartment, kind of a little indentation in the back of this piece here. There's an indentation where this fits in. So you push it through the hole, bend it up, and then make sure it fits inside that little indentation in the back of this, and then you push it back together carefully, making sure that this is in the proper position, and then you reassemble it the way that you took it apart. Okay, so the same way you took the notes and the pictures and so forth, you put all the screws back in, you put the rod back in and everything. I'm not going to go through all that because it's basically, you know, this is the same as when you took it apart, if you took the notes. And again, this is not for novices, so I don't want to do blow by blow by blow through this whole thing, because if you really are not that good mechanically, I would not recommend trying to do this. When you put it back in, then you go through a test and put it back in the refrigerator. The test button is right here on the side of this, okay? And you push this here, and you hold it for, I think, about 5 seconds, something like that, until you hear a beep. You hold it and it goes beep beep, or ding. Actually, it dings in mine. I think it goes ding dong. And then it will start through a test cycle for the unit, where it will go through the entire process that it normally does. It'll fill the tray with water and so forth. It takes some time for it to go through the process. You want to put the tray back. You want to put everything in like it's supposed to be in when you reinsert it back in. Do the test, and then it should heat that water, give you ice, and should solve your problem. So that is the lesson for today. And if you have questions, of course, you can post them and ask them on YouTube, and we'll try to get back to you and let you know if any more information about it. So, all right, you have a good day and good luck on your Samsung ice maker. Bye-bye.